prosperity politics. Over
All
the
right.
last 20 years, we have encountered what was called the prosperity gospel. And basically in this new epoch of economics, where it has always been, it's called Calvinism. The Calvinistic branch of the Protestant religion equates your material worldly success with your heavenly mandate, meaning that God demonstrates who he loves and who he blesses on earth by giving them abundant material wealth. That's called Calvinism. And so that was also tied to the divine right of kings. The kings had the wealth and the power because they had the favor of God. And those of us who are peasants and serfs should, bow to their authority, because to confront and violate the king is to confront and violate God himself. So this is a long-standing Eurocentric mentality. So anyway, there was a time where, especially in Black Protestantism, Black Christianity, and even Catholicism, that God had a special place in his heart for the poor. God had a special love for the poor. And it was easier for a camel to walk through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the gates of heaven. That was the emphasis you would see in the Black church throughout the United States. Coming into the 1980s and what is called the Reagan era and the era of Reaganomics and neoliberal economics, that it became no longer that you should be ashamed of having grotesque wealth. It used to be wealthy men would pretend to be humble and front like they didn't have it. Rockefeller used to walk the streets. Nelson Rockefeller used to walk the streets as a poor old man, passing out pennies and nickels to the homeless, like, I'm just like you. But in that Reagan era, and I don't know if you know about Gordon Gekko, and there was an old movie about Wall Street where he said greed is good. And greed is natural, and greed is the natural order of things, and we are under natural selection. So long story short, white folks decided to lean into this hyper-consumerism, materialistic element, and Christianity, because Christianity is not driven by some divine force, Christianity is driven by the powerful people in the society, and it serves the powerful people in society. So when Europeans were imperialist, Christianity was overtly racist. And then when Europeans decided to switch up their imperialism and have this desegregation, inclusive Christianity, so Christianity became inclusive. It's all a large manipulation. So when the United States decided to lean fully into, after the capitalists defeated the communists in the Cold War, they say, hey, greed is good, capitalism is the way. TINA, the principle of TINA that was articulated by Margaret Thatcher and other right-wing European leaders, there is no alternative to capitalism. All that culminated into Christianity getting on board with the politics of the era, with the economics of the era, and thus you get prosperity gospel, prosperity ministry, and the birth of the mega churches. So of course, as go massa, so goes his slaves. So African ministers, T.D. Jakes, Creflo Dollar, or Klepto Dollar, even Reverend Price on the West Coast, may he rest in peace, Eddie Longstroke, brought what started amongst the white folks, brought it into the Black community, and you had a good 20 to 30 years of prosperity gospel. But after a while, people grew weary with prosperity gospel. Some people started to articulate, like Reverend Barber with the Poor People's Campaign, that this pursuit of wealth is inconsistent with Christian values and Christian principles. And so prosperity gospel, even though it's still with us, isn't as prominent. And so what happened when prosperity gospel fell out, you had some opportunistic parasites like Yvette, like Tyree, who said, let's take this prosperity gospel that generated billions of dollars, that made storefront preachers into overnight multimillionaires. Mm-hmm. And they said, let's see if we can use prosperity gospel into politics and use some of those ideas and concepts and promises. So under prosperity gospel, they were like, well, if you praise God and you engage God properly, you will get material wealth under capitalism. And so they just turned God into politics. So if you engage the US political climate properly, you will get money. And so they say, hey, we're going to, ADOS and FBA say, we're going to embrace Western capitalism. We're going to embrace American exceptionalism. We're going to embrace all the imperialism and all the shit that we've been fighting for generations, they say, we'll get down with that. We'll be jingoistic. We'll be xenophobic. We'll be separatists. We ain't like, get the Africans out. Don't let them in. Don't give them stuff. We'll do all that if you pay us. We'll be lapdogs for white imperialism. We'll mimic everything about white folks. We'll become, if you pay us. And that's prosperity politics. And reparations went from repairing African people. Reparations, by definitions, means you restore a people back to the status that they were in prior to the atrocity. And it went from being about ending imperialism, just redistribution of wealth, reuniting the African diaspora with our continent, to being just about a sum amount, just about Black people getting money, buying property, and inflating and getting more and more fiat capitalism, fiat currency to reinvest in the capitalist system. So they are opportunistic, and they're not even good parasites because they're unoriginal. They're extremely unoriginal in that. So that's what, and certain right-wing political bodies, certain capitalistic political interests and economic interests say, wow, this is a divisive ideology. It is an ideology that is dependent on our benevolence and our fiat. So they got a boost from our oppressors. Just like in the civil rights movement, you had integrationists and you had liberationists, and the oppressors, the DuPonts and the other elites decided to back NAACP and the integrationists as opposed to the liberationists. In this era, you have reparations for liberations and reparations for income and consumption. They back that side, you know, divide and conquer. So Absolutely. They have no real legitimacy. They have no real platform, and their plan is not viable.
Very good.